Thank you. Okay, my first question, this interview is going to be about learning and how an administrator would view learning. So as an administrator, how do you approach learning in your building? Like, how do you feel like you can impact the learning of the students in your school, even though you're not actively in each classroom teaching?
Through informal and formal observations, but certainly the informal ones happen more frequently. So that's one way we can affect learning. Frequent 10-minute, 15-minute walkthroughs of classrooms, and then encouraging teachers to dialogue on things like setting honest learning targets for students, having students use I can statements during and at the end of lessons, ensuring that teachers do use something of a structure in their lessons that assesses learning, not their own teaching.
Right. So how do you feel when you do those, when you do the observations, like the informal and everything, how do you feel like you can yourself impact? Like, what are the things that you can do to impact what happens in the classroom?
Well, first of all, setting the tone with the teachers that they need to have an open dialogue with me about instruction and the goal of learning. In other words, they have to self-assess. They have to reflect on their lessons. They have to then, I have to ask key questions as the administrator. To number one, I have to set a rapport with them where they're comfortable, and they're comfortable asking questions as well as answering them. That makes the process of being more self-reflective more comfortable.
Right.
It makes them more comfortable then to also share with their colleagues. One of the other things we do is we allow teachers to do peer observations, where there's a co-coaching that can happen out of that. So I think those are some of the things that I can do to set the tone with the teachers that we're all in this for the same reason, and that is to promote student performance and student learning. So you need to be comfortable in reflecting accurately on what's going on in your classroom and ways to address instruction that makes it the most effective it can be. And classes are not all the same. Students are not all the same. So therefore, the way I approach each staff member is somewhat unique. Because they're not all the same. So if we differentiate for children, we also have to differentiate for the personalities, the qualities of our teachers.
Yeah. How do you that must be a little difficult to try to differentiate for all the different teachers in the building.
Well, that's why the frequent walkthroughs are necessary. To be in each classroom each day for a little bit of time lets the teacher know, number one, I think all the teachers know that you care about learning, and that's your job and that's your main function. Also, offering them assistance. In our building, we have a smartboard in every classroom. That's something that grew out of a request of the teachers. Now we're utilizing that not as a glorified chalkboard, but as something where there's templates and it's the ability to share lessons across a grade level or across grade levels themselves is quite apparent to the teachers. So you can see the difference in a geometry lesson that is taught to third graders and a geometry lesson that's taught to fourth graders. Because for some time, those lessons were too similar. And we weren't stretching the kids in terms of their learning goals and their learning targets. So I think now we're able to see and say, oh, wait, they did teach that in third grade. It's quite obvious. It's not just all about a pre-assessment and assessment that I conduct. It's about, I have genuine knowledge of what goes on in the year prior to the one I teach. That would be one example of how we facilitate that process. As far as the differences between teachers, at that point, you get to know their personalities, and it's not as difficult as it sounds if you're around them frequently. If you're not around them frequently, it would be a guessing game, which would be inappropriate.
Yes, of course, And the school, in the time that I've been here, it just seems very everyone's very close knit, all working together for the same goal, and
it's good to hear.
It's really good. That's what I've noticed since I've been
here. It's good to hear. Well, see.
Do you believe that the environment of a building affects the learning abilities and styles of the students?
Yes, I believe firmly the environment of the building has to be one that the kids know that you care, and that you care if they learn or not, and failure really isn't acceptable. And it's something where the kids understand to ask the best of themselves each and every day. So environment is huge, and I differentiate a little between culture and climate.
Mhm.
You know, climate I consider to be the daily environment of the building,
Right.
whereas the culture of the school is that it's more supporting the vision statement that all students feel capable of learning each and every day that they arrive
Mhm.
here. So the culture also has to be. I just think that they support one another. They're not mutually exclusive,
Right.
but they're two distinct things that an administrator has to pay attention to,
Mhm.
and they're constantly evolving, dependent on your staff and
Yes.
dependent on the small actions make big differences.
Mhm. Right. How do you think the environment, maybe not just inside of the school, but around, like where the kids come from, how do you think that, especially in this school, their neighborhood, the neighborhood that comes into the school, how do you think where they live and who their families are affects the way that they learn?
I think it affects it tremendously because the follow through of what the teachers do on a daily basis either does or does not happen. I think our
Right.
particular community is relatively stable,
Mhm.
and that helps. It helps to have a good parent involvement
Mhm.
level, which we do have. We have a strong PTA, and we have parents that are receptive to commentary from teachers and administrators,
Mhm.
and that what we do here is supported at home. You'd always like more of that
Right.
than less, and
Mhm.
I believe if we looked at the students who are having difficulties,
Mhm.
they would, in many cases, come from the homes where that support is not obvious and may not be happening.
Right.
It's just such a degree. Then it's our role to try and foster that, get it to happen.
Yeah.
Talk to the parents.
How would you do that? How would you, if you see a child coming from a family that's not that much support, what can you do as an administrator to foster that or to make it happen?
We hold meetings with parents.
Mhm.
We get the parents in that we think are, I speak to them directly
Mhm.
and ask, are you helping the children? Do they have a constant place to do their homework, for example?
Right.
Or do they shift rooms as homework progresses?
Yeah.
Do they have a set time to do the homework? Or are they starting at 3 o'clock and somehow ending it at 9?
Yeah.
And there's a series of interruptions
Mhm.
within that 6 hours.
Yeah.
Which is as long as the school day.
Right.
I mean, which is as long, and that's critical to point out to parents that it's
Mhm.
as long as the school day, the time they have at home.
Yeah.
So, we do reach out to them usually by phone,
Mhm.
and sometimes we set up meetings and we meet in person
Yeah.
with students who are underperforming,
Mhm.
given their abilities.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell me about some of the? Oh, sorry. Can you tell me about some of the programs that you've implemented for students in regards to learning in the school? Like maybe some of the after school. I know that you do the science. There's a science club or.
Well, we
Something
have
in the-
we have Mad Science that
Mhm.
we did through the PTA this
Right.
year, where it's a sign-up program for grades 1 through 5.
Mhm.
That was something that you may be referring
Right.
to.
Yes.
That ran 6 weeks. It was more fun than learning goals for individual students.
Okay.
Where we have learning goals for individual students would be our Before Mathematics Help
Yes.
program on Tuesdays and Fridays. That is more geared towards either enrichment for some kids or remediation for others and maintenance for a third cadre.
Okay.
So that's something that I definitely would say we've done here at Lafayette Mills. That's
Right.
unique to our building. I would also indicate that we have young astronauts for approximately 22 students. So that would be science-based. By choice, though, those students
Okay.
go there by choice, so they do go there. I think some of the other things, we do have a chess club. I think that does improve their learning.
Yeah. Logic.
We have approximately 108 kids in the grade span of 1
Mhm.
through 5 in the program, and then we meet every other week.
Okay.
So we do some problem solving
Mhm.
in that regard. We also get some disaffected kids involved in those activities,
Mhm.
and I think that improves their desire to learn.
Right.
So I think those are some of the programs that we engage in. I think LMTV also gets kids involved,
Yeah.
and not for the purpose of remediation or recoupment of knowledge, but it does get them writing.
Right.
And they have to write stories, and they have to present the stories, and there's a performance aspect to that, in my opinion.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's,
there is.
that,
And
that's
they're
where we're at.
working on all the equipment and all that kind of.
Absolutely, and
Like
then there's the
institute.
technical end of
Right.
LMTV as well. So those are some of the programs that I think are unique to our school that you wouldn't see
Yeah.
at the average elementary.
Right. What's that astronaut? You're saying the Young
The Young
Astronauts
Astronauts is a program that's been around for approximately 15 years.
Mhm.
It's evolved a little bit.
Okay.
Ms. Brown is now conducting it, and they do some experimentation, science experiments. They did the rocket launch recently
Okay.
with straws, and they had to build a rocket, and they had to set the trajectory and then predict where it would land.
Oh, okay.
So they did some mathematics involved in that.
Mhm.
They do build a mock shuttle. They also talk about and learn about the program that NASA has and where that program may evolve to someday.
Yeah.
And where it's been. So they look at the historical components of NASA, what they've done, what they've accomplished over time, where they are currently, and then the culminating event for that really would be Science Night, which just passed.
Okay.
And Science Night involves many different aspects that go beyond Young Astronauts, but they had a cadre of students go to that event and conduct experiments with our
Yeah.
younger students. So that
Okay.
was nice to see.
That's really interesting. And that's all grades, so 1 through 5. They can do that.
No, that would be grades 2 through 5.
Okay.
2 through 5.
That's really great. That sounds like a good program. So how do you think the programs like the math and the Young Astronauts, how do you think they've affected the learning of the students in the classroom, or how do they affect
I
learning?
think the morning math help has made a distinct effect because you can see, number one, that the grades those students are going up. We do track them. The pre and post tests for benchmark testing, you can see the change, the positive change. And also we do a parent questionnaire where the parent feedback is given
Okay.
to me. So in those 3 ways, I can tell that there's been improvement. Certainly we will analyze the scores that come in August from the NJASC, but that will be, in hindsight, not
Right.
at this point.
Yeah, not
but we
for
do, with the conducting of benchmark testing, it assists us in knowing that we're having an impact that's positive now,
Yes.
rather than waiting
Right.
for August, which
Yeah.
is a little too late,
Mhm.
especially for 5th graders that go on to Pine Brook School.
Yeah. Yeah, now there's something you can do now about it.
Yeah.
Right. That's really good. What are some of the programs for teachers, like professional development things that you set up in regards to learning? Or that happen in the school?
Well, in the school
Teachers do.
district right now, we're conducting the professional learning communities,
Okay.
where teachers are driving where they go with their professional development is what's going on now in the school district, and grade level meetings, grade level professional development is where we're at now. There's a push towards differentiating instruction more, although it's been a district initiative for many, many years. I think there's a resurgence of it at this point in time. In addition to that, I think we're looking at Grant Wiggins' style of writing curriculum,
Okay.
and I know it's but the idea that you have an overarching question that needs to be answered, and I know, like everybody likes to say, begin with the end in mind,
Yeah,
and backward
right.
design. I'm not sure that's you have to have things how they were intended. But the idea that you have learning goals in mind that you're